Good morning, Truckee. If everybody could take their seats. Gerald, that means you coming in late. Yeah. Start at 7:15, sir.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning to you. All right, everybody, thanks for coming out here on the ski skate week. It means that you either don't have school-age children or have a job that you actually have to answer to. So it's a good group. I'm glad to be a part of it. We have a good presentation this morning with a lot of new Truckee leaders, 4 of them to be exact, and we have Sven Left of Park and Recs District. We have Richard Palante of the Tahoe Truckee Sanitation Agency, Rob Entire of the Truckee Tahoe Airport District, and Chief Danny Renfro from the Truckee Police Department. Before we get started, we'd like to thank our sponsors. The presenting sponsors is Kelly Brothers Painting. The latte sponsors are Town of Truckee, East River PR, Tahoe Forest Healthcare System, Tahoe Mountain Realty, and your very own Porter Simon, of which I am an attorney. And Cappuccino sponsors Pacific Crest Wealth Planning and Mountain Hardware and Sports. The espresso sponsors are Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation, Got Dogs, JK Architecture Engineering, Wild and Rough, Mount Lincoln Construction, Auerbach Engineering Corporation, Dixon Realty, and NV5. And then we have the media sponsors, Tahoe Truckee Media, 101.5 Truckee Tahoe Radio, Sierra Sun, and Moonshine Inc. And as always, we'd like to thank the committee that puts this together, Jessica Penman of the Chamber, Ruth Garrissey, Melissa Williams, and Randy Braun, Kelly Cutler, Miomi Peacock, Ernie Grossman, Gerald Herrick, Tony Lashbrook, Jim Porter, Deb Ryan, Ted Owens, and Emily Vitus. And thanks to Rory and Dan today from the team at Tahoe Truckee Media for handling all the AV and putting this on. And thank you to the town of Truckee for letting us host it here in the council chambers. So we're going to start with introductions. Jake, let's start with you.
Jake Hudson from NV5 and Truckee River Watershed Council.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kathy Slocum. I have Just Imagine Marketing and Design.
Good morning. I am Susan Jacobazzi, and I am a communication coach in organization.
Gerald Herrick, Truckee Fire Board.
Go ahead, Jan.
Jan Zabriskie, Truckee County Council and Nevada County Transportation.
Robert Stevens, Truckee Tahoe Airport Board, HAP Advisory Committee in Placer County and Placer County LAFCO.
Mary Featherington, Truckee Tahoe Airport Board, Castle Peak Engineering, and a ping pong advocate Thursday night.
Louise Zabriskie, Friends of the Truckee Library, and the new library project.
Going back.
And
Oh,
I'm Mike
sorry.
Rogers. Good morning, everyone. With the Prince of the Truckee Library Project and lived in Truckee for 5 years. Or maybe.
Jennifer Gallagher, JK Architecture Engineering.
Good morning, Elizabeth Wainsco with Plymouth Bank and Truckee Chamber Board member.
Amy Kaufman, citizen.
Welcome. Richard.
Richard Palante, I'm the General Manager at TPSA. Rob Entire, I'm the General Manager at the Airport District. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, Sven Left, General Manager at Reagan Park.
Good morning. I'm Carissa Bakley, Economic Development Analyst for the Town of Truckee.
Hi, I'm Chelsea D'Elia, I'm with Guild Mortgage, doing loan officer for California and Nevada.
Good morning, Fred Safford, Truckee Tahoe Pickleball Club.
Good morning, Erica Mertens with the Town of Truckee. I'm our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Program Manager, also Truckee Roundhouse Board member.
Good morning. I'm Emily Vitus, Board Chair of the Truckee Chamber of Commerce and Executive Director of the Truckee Tahoe Workforce Association.
Allison Stredner, Community Collaborative with Tahoe Truckee, which is a program of the Community Foundation.
Deb Ryan, Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation.
Stacey Jesperson, Truckee Tahoe Airport, and Truckee Optimist Club.
And I'm Ron Nielsen, Dixon Realty, Optimist Club, Sidka Mountain. I'm Swedish.
Sue Drake with the Checker
Kathleen Egan, Friends of Truckee Library, bringing the new library to Truckee.
Ernie Grossman, Truckee. I just want to know how Marianne is handling Jim's retirement. That's all tolerating Jim's retirement.
Not so well. Jim Porter, affiliated with Porter Design.
Loosely.
Good morning, Pastor David Gregory from Crossroads Truckee Church.
Martin Paul, you go along.
Angie Maria, Truckee Sanitary District.
I'm Dave Ria, married to Angie, and I'm just the sixth.
It's all right.
Danny Renfro, Truckee Police.
Okay, unless I missed anybody, we are going to begin the presentations, and we're going to start with Sven Left of the Parks and Recreation District. And if you can just hold your questions till after he finishes, or if he wants to take them as he goes, he can let you know. Thanks. Sven, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Good morning. Who's my clock? Who's going to wave me when I talk too long? Because I tend to ramble.
I'll let you know.
All right, here's my clock. Great. And yeah, I'm okay with questions as we go. So, my name is Sven Leff. I am the new general manager for the Truckee Recreation and Park District. I'm going to kind of do three things today. I'm going to tell you just a little bit about myself, a little bit about Rec and Park, and then a little bit about the projects that we're in the process for. So, briefly about myself. So, I'm one of those kids that grew up with parents here as second homeowners. And Truckee really got into my blood back in the 80s when I was a kid. And who knew you could make a career out of Parks and Recreation? But I've done that. I've been doing this for more than 30 years. Most of my life, it's either been, I kind of characterize when people tease me, I'm a little bipolar. Because I got about 30 years between California and Nevada, and 20 years between Minnesota and Iowa and stuff. So, and then a little bit of Colorado and Oregon connections in the process. But never knew that you could really create a career out of Parks and Recreation, and I've been lucky enough to do that for more than 30 years now. So, love it. And then it was a really great honor to be able to come out here. Some of you know Dan O'Gorman. Dan O'Gorman and Steve Randall were like the stalwarts for more than 30 years at our Recreation and Park District. Dan O'Gorman retired about 5.5 years ago, and with Truckee on my radar, I took the opportunity. It actually was a demotion and a pay cut for me from Iowa, of all places, to come here and succeed Dan O'Gorman as the recreation superintendent. And the important part for me was getting to Truckee. This is home. My parents, my sister, and stuff are in the Bay, and that's where I'm originally from, in San Jose, by the way. But Truckee and all the beautiful resources in our culture around recreation and active lifestyles, we seem almost to be like impervious to aging here. It's really pretty cool. It's just a positive place, right? And it was really formative for me. So it's kind of where I was drawn to come home. Took the opportunity to succeed Dan O'Gorman and learn from Steve Randall, who retired just here in January. So I've been here about 5.5 years, really got to understand our organization and our community a lot better than if I was the outsider. And have been really blessed, and I'm very thankful to be able to succeed Steve Randall in leading our Recreation and Park District. Now, the Recreation and Park District was formed in 1962 by Charter 63. It was actually kind of like what feels like our first year of being organized and doing things. So this year actually is our 60th year, and we're going to be celebrating that in some of the various ways that we do it. Steve Randall was here 38. Some people don't know that, in fact, there's several things that have gone on that were just mentioned in the introductions here. Lots of places, even around the country, lots of people don't know how Parks and Recreation affects their community. In Iowa, it was Cedar Rapids, Iowa specifically, where I was the Parks and Recreation director. And it's easy to think, hey, you got a recreation center. I know that's run by Parks and Rec. That makes sense. But sometimes people don't know that the land behind their house, that ditch that handles the stormwater, is maintained by Parks and is part of a flood protection system. Here in Truckee, a lot of people don't realize we own and maintain the piers on Donner Lake, the 37 public piers. A lot of the public don't even know or care who has it. They just know they're a free pier that they can get out there really early and have a nice day, right? Let's see. So we have the Truckee Community Pool. That thing's been open about 5.5 years now, 6 years. That was really hard to shut down and harder to rebuild with COVID. That one was mind blower. But what was pretty fascinating is the aquatic supervisor at the time, Amanda, had built a really nice machine that had the pool running. Then she had a different position, and we had new leadership, and that pool closed due to COVID. 1.5 years later, 2 years later, when we reopened, we had 6 employees. And it takes about 65 to 100, depending on the time of year, to run that place. So those 6 employees busted their butts and a lot of crazy hours to lifeguard in the morning and train staff. Really tremendous opening and an amazing facility. If you've not been over to a pool, check it out. The Community Recreation Center is relatively well known. It's right next door. It's been open 14 years now and it almost still looks brand new, except for the windows that need to be cleaned. The Recreation Center there is fantastic. You know, the old rec, we all now call the Community Arts Center downtown on Church Street. That's an old school and an old library, I'm told. And during COVID, we used that to do a lot of childcare for families who had to work and they had to put their kids through like distance learning and stuff like that. So we have the rec center, the arts center, the golf course, Ponderosa Golf Course, owned by the airport. That was purchased, I believe that's about 15 years ago now, from a private owner owned by the airport, and we have been the management company for Ponderosa Golf Course now for about 12 years. That was recently renewed. Regional Park, big park, one of the older, more central public amenities in town. People play softball there or what have you. I mean, that's us. The library will eventually fit in there, which is going to be really nice to have this coming spring. In fact, there's a project that I'll mention in a sec that's the renovation of the ball fields. If you played softball, you've probably been frustrated more and more often as the lights have gotten dimmer and dimmer for the last 30 years. It totally falls below what, you know, American Softball Association says is safe. Well, we finally got new lights, and that's a really exciting thing for ball this spring. Riverview Sports Park. Some of you are familiar with that. You may use it yourself. The Bocce League is really popular. But we have lots of soccer, youth sports and stuff out in the ball fields. That is property that we lease from both Sanitation District and a little bit of it from the airport. In fact, most of the parks, regional, for example, has 5 parcels. Truckee Rec and Park District owns 2. The other 3 are leases, partners with other agencies like Sanitation and PUD and so forth. So we really are kind of built on a fabric of community and of working together and stuff. And some of that, of course, you know, goes way back into the formation of this town in the 60s and 70s, and it has things just kind of evolved. Parks and Recreation was right there, a part of that. West End Beach is also ours, real flagship place for the summer times. And Frank, I was out there on Saturday, and the snow, you know, is probably 14 feet tall. And it's packed, and people are walking on top of the buildings and sledding off of them and letting their dogs run and waste everywhere. And it's always a joy to clean in the spring. But we do. We do because it's the public's property, and it's a beautiful place. And if they want to use it, they have access to it. So that's what we are as a district. And sometimes what I really will kind of punctuate is that recreation and parks, as I mentioned, a lot of people don't necessarily know a lot of what we do. You may know your niche, but you don't know the whole gamut of what we do. One of the areas, and I'll bring this up, I think it's really important because we're talking about, you know, this is a chamber event, we're talking a little bit about commerce. There's 2 main areas that I see recreation and parks really contributes a lot to the community. First of all, it's in our childcare. We run preschool through, in the summertime, camps through like 7th graders or 8th graders. So we get about ages 2 through 14 throughout the course of a year. We serve about 220 kids a day that we serve. We've got 4 preschool classrooms, 2 at the rec, 2 at the Arts Center. We've got our before and after school programs at Truckee Elementary, Glentra Elementary, at the after school here. We found especially the pressure during COVID where some people didn't have the option to work from home. The importance of being there for the families because of the child care services we provide is a tremendous partnership or role that we feel is really, really key for what we do in Parks and Recreation, just for general living in this community. And then second of all, it's how can our amenities be so cool, so fun, serve your needs, make this town be a place you want to live or your employees want to live, something that's attractive as you're trying to bring people to the community. We only have a small role here because the ski resorts and the Forest Service and all the trails and stuff, most of those are run by towns or the town or homeowner associations. All of these amenities really matter. And we got the pool. We got the gym, and it's like this stuff is really important when it comes to the attraction or the retention. 2 minutes more. Cool. So what do we got going forward? So yeah, I guess I didn't leave much time for you guys to ask questions until later. What do we got going forward? So last October, we did a ribbon cutting on the downtown park renovation, which is a partnership with the contract associations and a lot of donors and a lot of other businesses. We had the ribbon cutting on like the 27th, and it snowed on the 1st. So this coming year, when the snow melts off and we kind of get the finishing touches, we'll see how the community embraces that. We've got the renovation of the ball fields that I mentioned at Regional Park, which are nearly finished. And then going forward, there's a real active push, which I know Fred and the Pickleball has been here before, talking about the Pickleball Club. They just kicked off a fundraiser on Sunday. We've now got a plan set we're going to bring to the town planning for this week to try to get that moving over to the addition of courts at Riverview Park. And then there is still the skate park group that's working on raising some funds and awareness for a new or expanded skate park over at Regional. So those are some of the projects. Music in the Park is my baby. That's coming back this summer. That's a blast. Wednesday nights, June 21st to August 30. 11 weeks of free concerts. And we're opening with Poor Man's Whiskey this year. And Dead Winter Carpenters will play July 5. So I don't know if that was more than 2 minutes, but I appreciate the cue.
Question.
Yeah.
I've got one.
Yeah.
The field remodel, is another field being added, or are they just reorganizing the number of fields that were there?
So at Regional Sports Park, large and small softball diamonds, they were kind of oriented with home plate, outfield skirting in the same direction off to the northeast. We're only pivoting them and switching them, but what this does is it creates a common outfield now. Instead of two separate pieces, we've now got a very large span of grass that after softball ends in Labor Day weekend-ish, in the fall, the temporary fencing can come down, and now we've got a very large outdoor space for soccer, football, lacrosse, rugby, and it's under the lights. And they're doing a really cool thing over at North Tahoe that I think would be kind of cool to do in the wintertime, is groom a ski skate loop. Within that area, we can light the thing up really brightly on the nice, winter's night and let people ski skate the perimeter of two softball fields. So it's not technically the addition of a new field, but it gives us extra flexibility. So, and we expect that to be open May 1st. There was another question I thought I saw a hand. Yeah.
I just wanted to know, is the pump track part of Parks and Recs, or is that?
The pump track and the Truckee Bike Park, yes. So that is largely built by a nonprofit called Biking for a Better World. It is in agreement with Truckee Recreation and Park District, who has the Riverview Sports Park under lease from the other two entities. So they are developing a park amenity in our space. They are not separate from us. Yet they have a lot of independence, and they've done a tremendous job. If you've not been over to the Truckee Bike Park, even just go on a Saturday and watch people use it. It's fascinating what they do. So thank you. All right, so I'm going to hang out all morning. If there's questions later on, I'm available. But thanks. Nice to meet you.
All right, Sven left. Thank you. Next up, we have Richard Palante of the Tahoe Truckee Sanitation Agency, and he is a general manager here to tell us all about his organization. Welcome, Richard.
Well, good morning, and thank you for having me today. So some of you, this slide presentation is going to be a repeat, so apologize. But I will change it up a little bit and tell you a little bit more about myself than I've done as part of those presentations. I've been in public sector for 34 years. Sven will be happy to know I started my career in Parks and Rec and then transitioned over into the wastewater world. I've been with TTSA for 5 years, going on 5 years in April. Came up from Southern California, don't shoot me. Worked for a large agency down there. wrapped up a $200 million expansion, got a little bored, opportunity arose, and was thinking retirement plans, so moved north. So that's what brings me here today. So first slide on my presentation is just our mission statement. I'm not going to go through and read all the slides to you and bore you, but it ties into what my overall goals are for the agency. Next slide. A little bit of a process flow. Again, I'm not going to go through each step, but if you have questions on the process flow, it's quite a complex operation. I think a lot of people don't realize just how complex wastewater treatment is. I know most of you just want to flush and say goodbye to it, and we'll take care of it. That's good. But if you have any questions on the process flow, I'd be happy to answer any questions on that. My presentation was really focusing on our staffing because that's what I plan on focusing on over the next 3 years. I think we've been a little bit out of sight, out of mind down there. Want to re-engage our staffing in the community through community involvement. And then again, if you look at our agency, we got probably over $1 billion in assets. But as many of you know, the real asset are the people who get the work done every day. Next slide. So I'm going to highlight a few of those. Far left corner are some guys cleaning out a digester. Probably one of the nastiest jobs that we have that takes place every few years. It's a large tank where, yeah, you can guess what's inside of there. But we got to go in and clean it out. So highlight the work that these guys do. Again, it goes unseen most of the time. Highly skilled work. We have electricians, instrumentation technicians. Next slide. A few more of the people that make it happen out there for us. And then really the bulk of my presentation is the next slide. What I'm going to be focusing on, our biggest thing that we focus on is compliance, right? We have our WDR, which is our waste discharge requirement, that is given to us by the state. So being the Truckee River, we want to protect the environment we're in, so that's our number one goal. Safety, we're going on 10 and a half years of no lost time injuries, which is a very remarkable and commendable achievement. Collaboration's the area that I'm going to be working on, really establishing open and bidirectional communication with my staff and the community. That's why I'm here today. Lead with fairness and integrity. I'm sure many of you have heard the varying things that are going on at our agency. I think we finally turned the corner on that, and they're making a lot of positive progress. Big one is succession planning. So over the next 3 years, we're going to lose many of our upper staff. So we're going to start working on educating and training our staff that's there. So they're ready to promote. We're going to have to start growing from within. It's getting extremely difficult to recruit for our industry. Sure that's the case across many agencies right now. Transparency, again with the board. I like to tell everybody I'm not a kick the can down the road kind of guy, so I plan on working really closely with our board to identify things that need to be done at the agency now instead of waiting 10, 15 years or kicking it off and giving it to the next GM in 3 years. Strategic plan, we don't have one right now, so we'll be working on developing 2 different ones, a short term, which will accomplish setting a strategy for the management staff that's there now, and then a long term, which we'll use to guide the staff that's taken over for us, and hopefully all the guys that are there will be stepping in those spots, so they'll be part of that process. Fiscal responsibility, this is one I wanted to touch on, and it has probably some interest to you. We had a master plan that we just completed. It's a 25-year master plan, so we went through the agency with Carollo engineers, identified what needs to be rehabilitated, which is almost everything. The plant was developed and built in '75, so it's getting old. A lot of work to be done. Along with that financial responsibility comes how do we pay for it. So we've been going through a rate study that will be, the final draft will go for approval at our next board of directors meeting in March. So I encourage you, if that's something that interests you, to listen in. The highlight is the agency hasn't raised its rates since 2011. That's been great. We've been able to absorb it, but we're at the point now where our O&M expenses are starting to exceed our income. So That's just not financially prudent or feasible. So we will be looking at a rate increase, and I'll be happy to take any questions on that. And then the next and last thing is just to reestablish ourselves in the community, participating in community education events, myself attending events such as this where I can interact with the community, hear what you've got to say, and address any concerns that are there. So that kind of is it. I'm a little bit quicker than Sven, so be happy to field any questions you might have. Yes?
Can you explain the difference between the two sanitation departments or agencies in the community?
Sure. So our agency is made up of 5-member districts. We do run the interceptor that runs from Tahoe to the plant. That's our responsibility. And then treatment's our responsibility. All the other agencies are responsible for the collections in each of their community. So that's the structure difference.
The Truckee River Interceptor, did that make the list of things that has to be replaced?
It was part of the master plan list. There's none of it that needs to be replaced. We do have 5 river crossings that we're looking closely at because they're getting old. So we're going through an engineering study right now to figure out what's the best approach to address those river crossings, whether it's a slip liner, which will most likely be the case because I don't think that we'll be able to dig up the river. And then there's a couple other spots. The nice thing is we did some expansion work when I first came here in 2018 along the corridor, and when we removed those sections of pipe to increase the size, we cut out sections of that pipe that we removed to get an idea of what condition it was in, and it's in excellent condition. So we also digitally scan the TRI. We do one segment every year, so every 3 years we're doing a complete assessment of it. And digital scanning is a little bit different than the normal CCTV you hear about, in that as you watch it, you get a full 360-degree view that you can control. So it's like if you were actually walking around it, just looking at it. So we're able to assess it really well. So we do, like I said, we do that one section a year, broken into 3 sections, do one section a year. So every 3 years we're re-seeing each area. So, yes.
Can you describe how you monitor water quality downstream of the plant? Whether you ever had problems with it, how you solve them?
Sure. As part of our WDR is a monitoring requirement as well. So we have a well that's at the, I'll call it the farthest downstream of the facility. That's our compliance point. So everything that we treat goes into a basically we have a huge leach field. It drains back into the ground. So that's where we'll sample at. There's a list of constituents that we need to look at for that. I don't have all those lists there, but we're looking at BOD, which is biological oxygen demand, pH, conductivity, several other, chloroform. And then we also monitor along the river. So we'll take samples upstream and downstream as well. As long as I've been here, there's never been any issues with anything other than we have struggled with pH that comes out of the field. One thing that we do to help that is we've been injecting a caustic to adjust that pH. Another positive thing we've done lately is right now we're running on sodium hypochlorite for disinfection. We were on chlorine gas. We're doing that right now to facilitate a project that we're doing. It's proving out to be very successful. All the numbers are looking really well. If they hold, then I'll be going back to our board and wanting to do a project to convert over. It's a much safer project. And then along with that, it'll help adjust that pH so we don't have to use caustic. So.
So what you were just last talking about, is that the idea to get rid of the monster marine tank and go to ultraviolet or ozonation treatment with the chlorine residual liquid?
Long term, I would say it might be an alternate disinfection like UV or ozone. We need to look at a lot of things. We're starting to study that now. We're going to run a 1-year study just to see which there's a lot to look at as far as UV, transmittancy, calcium carryover, other things that can interfere with that. Right now, I see us, if all holds well, we'll go to sodium hypochlorite for a period of time while we evaluate and then look at that long-term alternate disinfection that is actually part of our master plan.
The intention of getting rid of the gas.
Exactly, yeah. That is my goal. If I can accomplish that, I'll be happy. And right now, all the chlorine cylinders are not on site, so I don't plan on bringing them back. So, yes.
Yeah, the pH, what's driving that? I mean, other places I've seen a lot of times it's fertilizers, but I don't see that necessarily being the sources.
It's just something that's in the ground. We don't really know what's driving it. Some of our treatment drives it, as far as disinfecting will drive pH some, but then once it goes into the ground, it's kind of what we refer to as a black box up there. So that has some effect on it as well. So when it leaves, I'll say this, when it leaves the tailpipe right at the plant before it goes to the field, our pH is within the realm we need to be in, but then when we sample it, at occasion, it'll drop down, so. All right.
Other questions? Thank you, Richard.
Yeah.
All right, up next is Rob Intire of the Truckee Tahoe Airport District. Rob is here to tell us about how it was a quiet weekend at the airport, right? No jets or anything. Thanks, Rob.
Thanks for the setup, Raven. Appreciate that. Well, good morning, everybody. A lot of familiar faces. Haven't seen in a little while. This is my first time at Good Morning Truckee in about 4 years, so it's good to be back. I'm at the airport district. Been there since May. Started as an interim general manager, and the board offered me a position to stay on for full time, so that's what I'm doing now. I've been around the Truckee community for probably 12, 13 years now. I spent the first part of my tour with Truckee here, 10 years over there at Tahoe Donner, running the other Park and Rec district here for the community. So after that, I was doing consulting for a couple of years and then came on board with the airport district here this last year. Prior to all that time here in Truckee, I was in the Marine Corps for 20 years and retired from that and traveled all over the wide world and spent a lot of time traveling to Southern California and overseas mostly. I've got 4 kids. They live all over the U.S. 2 of them are still in school in Reno. And I got a freshman and a senior there, and I live in Reno. I live in Truckee, and I sleep in Reno, is what I say. Yeah. So let's talk about the airport district a little bit here. I've got a couple slides to walk through, and I'll take questions along the way or at the end. Here's our mission statement, like we all have, and the different on this chart is I really think about the airport district as what you often see as a sustainable planning model. And we think about the different elements of a sustainable planning model. They are up here, the 4 quadrants you see: economic, the natural resources, the community, the social piece, and the operational. And this is the way I've kind of subdivided our budget, and I have a budget document presentation here because it really tried to tie what we're doing as a sustainable entity model to our budget. And I think that is what I'll talk about a little bit today. Next slide. So we have a history, we have statistics around what we are as an airport, 2 runways. I don't think that's new to anybody here. Let's go on to the next one. This really gets a better idea, the outline of the map here, of what a special district for the airport looks like. We're from the north part of the lake all the way back up here across Truckee and across 2 different counties. Like many of the special districts in this region, it is the land of special districts. There's a lot of overlap, there's a lot of elected officials, there's a lot of GMs, a lot of staff. If you add it all up, there's actually only about 2,300 actual employees of all these special districts. There's about 17,000 employees around this same footprint here in the district. So the JPA over here, Emily, is working a lot on housing around that area. But we cover a big territory. We offer airport services. We've been around since 1958. And we are one of 9 special airport districts in the state of California. That's just more of the same. Let's go on to the next one. As we went through our budget process this last fall with our board of directors, and we have two of our board members here, Mary Hetherington and Rick Stevens, thank you for joining us today, of our five. We really focused on these 4 areas of a sustainable planning model for the airport to focus on our budget, where we're going to put our money, is where we're serious. And these are the areas that jumped out as highlights that we're going to focus on over this, this coming year. If I go through each of these quadrants to highlight maybe just one of them for each of these, just to give you an idea of what this looks like. In the top left quadrant, in the red area there, the economic sustainability, there's a new landing fee. We started last October. There wasn't a landing fee previously at all at the airport. Most airports have a landing fee. We have what we used to call what we call a ramp fee. We have that. So if you're pulling up in the ramp like at the gas station, you want to park your plane, you want services, you want fuel, we charge a ramp fee for those services and fuel that are provided. Obviously, the price of fuel is the price of fuel. What we never had in place was the landing fee, the actual cost to the airport to do a couple things that are unusual for Truckee here. We're Class D airspace, which means we have a lot of operations, but not quite enough to get the FAA's attention to actually fund a tower for us. So we self-fund our own tower. So we have a contract with a service provider that provides tower services for us that doesn't control the airspace, but helps manage the airspace for us and brings those, probably 30 some odd thousand flights in and out safely, or perhaps more safe than it was without a tower. So the cost of that tower, us providing it ourselves, costs something. It's about $1 million a year. The cost of the pavement impact that's not funded through FAA has a cost to replace that pavement on a regular basis to keep it at the maintenance level necessary to land aircraft on and take off aircraft. So those additional costs are a cost to the district. So we instituted a landing fee this last year to help offset that cost so the district taxpayers weren't paying for all these kind of things that were aviation specific. So that's new. Let's look at operational here. There are a variety of things going on. I think about this as about how we efficiently run and operate an airport district in the way of the staff, what kind of programs we're using, how we're staffing, how we're budgeting, how efficient we are in a variety of things. So there's a couple things in there. One of the things we're working on right now, I would say on here, is really looking at runway reconstruction, and we are currently in the process of the 2 runways. We have a really long one and a shorter one. The short one, runway 220, we're actually planned to reconstruct this year with some funding, grant funding from the FAA, with a little bit of match money of our own. So that's a big operational impact for us. It kind of crosses over to these other sectors as we look to shut down a runway for 12 weeks and operate all of our operations during a period of time over one runway. That's going to have impact on our local operators, for the pilots coming in and out as transient operators, and on the local community that's under those flight paths. So those are something I think about as having, there's a lot of operational efficiency around redoing a runway that's desperately needed to be redone, slowly coming apart. But also trying to make sure that we are communicating effectively and have a plan, a strategy to reach out to the community. Leads over in that blue section there. What's our social responsibility here as an organization? How do we interact with the community? How do we talk about the impact the airport has on the community? And what do we do about it? Do we just talk about it and let you know, plane's coming every day, just open your windows, enjoy that sound? Or are we actually actively doing something about that, trying to manage the direction the aircraft are coming in, they're taking off, and encouraging them to follow as safe as possible different traffic patterns so we reduce that impact on the community. And of course, the last section there in the green, natural resources and a sustainable planning model. I think the biggest one that jumps out at me here is probably our transition to sustainable aviation fuel. Jet A is what the jets take, that's their fuel. There is a product that's out now called sustainable aviation fuel, which takes a bio product, essentially blends it with the Jet A fuel and creates a new product called SAF, sustainable aviation fuel. We were about 10% when I first got to the airport of offering 10% of our Jet A fuel as sustainable aviation fuel. We're up to 50% of the fuel that we sell now for Jet A is sustainable aviation fuel. And by June, we'll be up to 75% is our goal. And I think by next year, as the supply chain continues to increase in this part of the country, in the Bay Area, and the big airlines don't just buy it all, we're able to buy some of that, we'll be up to 100% by next year is my goal. All right, next slide. Too small. Next slide. Too small. Let's go to the big pie chart, the next one. So all these are available on our website under our finances, our budget for this year is what this document is, kind of a high-level budget look at. There are some drill-down clicks on there. You can actually look line by line where we're spending money, where we're making money. This is the big pie chart to give you an idea of where the money's coming from. This is our revenue. You'll see we have property taxes there in red, 41% of our budget. And then we have airside revenues, 43% of our budget. So the airside revenue part is fuel sales is our biggest piece of that for the aircraft are there. I think it would be my goal, you know, I won't say my vision. The board is the one that develops a vision for the organization. We're in the process of developing a strategic plan as well right now. But I would say one of the things I look at, and one of the earlier charts talked about one of the bullets being charging market rates, and really looking at what we charge across the airport services, making sure that we aren't subsidizing what we are providing with the district tax dollars, essentially. So if something costs it costs $1, we're going to charge $1, maybe have a markup on it. We're not going to charge 75 cents. And just looking at that across the whole airport model is something I think about and are starting to introduce, and the board's been very supportive and actually pushing on this envelope, and that is charging market rates for what we provide. Now, we're obliged to do that, just like any other public sector organization. I can't give away public funds, so if we're charging less than market rates from the eye of FAA, the eye of our board of directors, and the airport district, we're not being responsible with the public funds. So my goal would be to continue to increase that airside revenue of 43% to a greater and greater percentage of our revenue source every year, which allows us to do other more creative things with the community on our tax-based revenue that we have here. All right, expenses. Okay, thanks. A little more breakout here. Like any service organization, we have a full-time staff of 27 at the airport. That costs money in the way of benefits, payroll. Our cost of goods, the other big piece here, that's buying fuel mostly, and then reselling it and making sure folks can get not just landing here, but enough fuel to get off to where they're going next. And various other things there. You see the air traffic control staffing on there. And the other piece on here, which is pretty unusual for a special district or probably even for a lot of the public entities around here, and that's community agency partnerships, $1.12 million. And that's a variety of programs that we have to partner with the community and different public agencies to provide matching funding or recognizing things that are important in the community that are in line with the airport district's mission and the purpose of the airport, so we can partner with other community entrants, whether it's a library for the community, whether it's a housing plan for the community with a JPA, or whether it's the Climate Transformation Alliance with a variety of different entities around here, looking at perhaps a bioenergy facility here for the local community, doing something with all that waste product coming out of the forest. All those things are in alignment with the airport mission and purpose. And those are things that we can take some time to look at that one piece that we're spending money on and how we could partner with the community. And the airport's been really great for years now, partner with the community, whether it's buying land, secure the golf course, to provide that back over to the Park and Rec District as a service to the community, or secure in the Wattle Ranch area to provide that open space to the community, protect it from encroachment and development. The airport has a long track record of being a good partner with this community, and I'm really pleased to be part of this. I'll take questions. Thank you.
So I've been your client, Santa, for 12 years. Do you think that's coming back?
Thank you for doing that. That's a great program, and I think as much as the community will support it and be a part of it, and not just solely airport run, I'd love to bring that back. Yeah. Yes, sir.
I've heard that on occasion there's some dissension among the board members. Is anything being done to address that?
Well, I've been working with elected boards for quite a while now, and I would say I have yet to be part of a board that didn't have some kind of dissension, and I think that's okay. That's why we have elected officials. As long as it's peaceful, as long as it's harmonious, and as long as it's cooperative and respectful. I think those are the key elements to bring varying viewpoints together in a public forum and finding a common thread and moving forward. I think the board has been doing a great job. They're currently working with an outside consultant, building our strategic plan right now on a series of workshops, and there seems to be a lot of alignment in that cooperative effort with our consultants, and I'm really pleased with it.
Rob, I'm really glad to hear that, and I would note that our two board members are sitting next to each other right now. Good progress. One's strangling the other, but don't.
Yeah. No wrestling going on over there. Yeah, it all looks good. Yes, ma'am.
Can you speak to landing fees? Is it a flat fee for everybody? Is it different depending on the size of the aircraft? What does that look like?
Sure. Our landing fees that we have in place here, kind of looking across all the U.S. actually, in similar type of communities, particularly mountain communities, what their market rates they're charging. It's all a little different, and it's based on what other fees they have, whether it's passenger service fees or commercial operations. They get their revenue from a variety of sources. We have a very limited sources of revenue here. So one of the things we actually did do is recognize the fact, like some other airports do, is that the heavier the aircraft is, the more impact it actually has on the community and the pavement. So we actually charge an escalating rate based on the aircraft size and type and weight. Actually, it's by weight, max takeoff weight. Yeah. So under 5,500 max takeoff, MTO they call it, 5,500 pounds and below actually don't charge a landing fee. And that's our local general aviation folks that are probably have a hangar here and operate recreational, that aren't running a business. Yeah.
The long runway, I don't know what the number is, but
Mhm.
generally runs 267 Bridge and then maybe towards Martis Peak.
Mhm.
I see most of the big jets take off towards 267 Bridge. I saw one take off towards Martis Peak the other day. Is there a reason that they're going one way as opposed to the other usually typically on takeoff?
Yeah, I think it's based on weather conditions and the size of the aircraft typically, and it's really sometimes they call it the air traffic controllers call it flow, and how aircraft are flowing into this region from Oakland Center and queuing up, whether they're queuing up to the north of us or queuing up to the south of us coming in here. And that's often depending on the overall flow of traffic in the region, in the airspace, and based on weather conditions typically. So usually you want to take off into the wind to get that lift coming up. So if it's flat wind conditions, then there's some options. If it's strong wind conditions in a certain direction, then you typically want to take off into the wind. When we have really flat wind conditions and not a lot of air traffic, our tower works with the pilots, and it's the pilot's preference is the way it works. But we try to encourage them to take off towards the open space as much as possible. Yeah, not over the town.
I get two questions.
Yes.
So, what's the percentage of piston versus jet?
Oh, I think of it about 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. Kind of, it's my 1/3 principle I use for a lot of things. About a third of it is small aircraft, small piston, Piper Cub, small things that are based here or visiting here. About a third of it is mid-size aircraft, PC-12, kind of turboprop kind of engine, small jet, and then a third of it's kind of the larger, small-size jets and bigger. Yeah, but it varies by time of year, by year. But we do look at all that. We do brief the board on that on a regular basis, and we do share that information with the community. Yeah. Thank you all.
Thank you, Alan. Appreciate it. Okay, last but not least is Chief Renfro, Truckee Police Department. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. Like I said, my name's Andy Renfro. I'm your new Truckee Police Chief. I've worked here for 19 years and actually started my law enforcement career here in Truckee. It's been a humbling experience to be the Truckee Police Chief, and I'm excited for the opportunities and the challenges that lie ahead. We know there's a bunch of challenges coming up. It's truly an honor to represent the men and women of the Truckee Police Department in this capacity. If I could get the next slide, please. As mentioned, I've been a Truckee police officer for the last 19 years. Started fresh out of the academy, and I've had the unique opportunity to work in or supervise every sworn position in the police department. Here is my wife pinning my first badge on me here in this very room 19 years ago. And the picture to the right is my wife and my daughter Hannah and my son Jack pinning my chief's badge on me. So that was great. I think that's a good depiction, and I also pointed out to my wife, like her hand position and the timing of both photos are like perfect there. So, excuse me, I've had the incredible opportunity to work for and alongside some incredible leaders here, which allowed me to learn, grow, and advance. I think it speaks volumes that the police department and the town truly invest in their employees, as I am proof of that. We'll go, next slide is the mission statement. So embraced by our community and esteemed by our profession, we provide premier and innovative police services in support of the town of Truckee's values, philosophies, and goals. So what does that mean, and how do we do that? In my mind, we have a culture set in the police department that it's not about just making arrests or writing tickets. We are not a stat-driven department. I want our officers to be able to solve problems or change behavior with a community-oriented policing approach. I want our staff to have the autonomy to choose creative solutions to address problems. Don't get me wrong, sometimes folks need to be taken into custody or someone actually earns that traffic citation. But I want our staff to think outside the box, and again, it's about changing behavior. Next slide. So our organizational chart, this is how the police department is laid out. We have 4 separate divisions. Starting from the top left, Robert Womack is our emergency operations manager. So he's the one that works on our emergency operations plan for the town. He also has done a lot of work with evacuations in Code Red, zone-based evacuations. Tell me everybody signed up for Code Red? Okay, and everybody knows their zone? Great. So he's done a lot of work. So he's a huge resource to the town and to the police department. On the left side, just below that, is Devery Acuff. She is the police administrative manager. So she runs and manages all of the professional staff in the police department, which consists of records, record supervisor, the animal shelter that we have in partnership with the Humane Society. So all the staff that's over there. And then in the center there, you have Lieutenant Lisa Madden. She runs our operations division. So operations is what you mainly see out in town with the police officers driving marked patrol cars, are the ones responding to the calls for service. So that's a large section of our police staff, and everybody knows our canine Muggs, right? Captain Mugshot. So he's a community outreach dog and soon to be trained to be a therapy dog for victims of violent crimes. So we're happy about that. Moving over to the right-hand side is Lieutenant Kyle Vickers. He's our investigations commander. So he oversees our investigations unit and then also our major investigations team. So what that is that supplements our detective unit in the event that we have a larger case that we can pull from our patrol staff, either detectives that have rotated out of the unit or aspiring detectives to help with that caseload. And then also the juvenile crimes detective, so the school resource officer. And then also on the top right is Brittany Johansson. She's the chief's executive assistant, so she's the one that keeps me in line. We'll go to the next slide. So accomplishments and challenges. So first, the Chiefs Advisory Committee, I don't know if you've heard about that. That's an accomplishment. And then the automated license plate reader program, pilot program that was just approved by council last month, I think is an accomplishment, and I'll get into that a little bit more in a second. And then the challenges. Someone else mentioned it, police recruitment. That's a challenge right now, is getting police officers in the door, and getting the right police officer in the door is key, right? And then what's at front of everybody's mind right now is traffic mitigation and traffic gridlock. I think we're all experiencing that. So next slide, we'll go to the Chiefs Advisory Committee. So the purpose of the CAC is to strengthen the relationship between the police department and the Truckee community by creating a structured and intentional vehicle for dialogue between community members and the police. In strengthening the relationship, we aim to advance the following. Ensure that I, as the police chief, and the police department personnel receive timely information and feedback about community concerns, crime, policing practices, and policies directly from the community we serve. Build stronger relationships with the community and reduce crime to improve the quality of life for everyone. Develop a pathway for increasing Truckee Police Department's understanding of the perspectives of the community members who have not traditionally been engaged or included by law enforcement. So that's important to us. Currently, we have 9 CAC members, and we meet on a monthly basis for 2 hours. Each CAC member has participated in ride-alongs, mock training scenarios where each member responded to an in-progress crime, which was pretty fun to watch. They have also been involved in community forums that are held by the police department. Some goals that we have for 2023 is member recruitment. We're currently recruiting some more members to the CAC. We want to get our numbers up from 9 to 12. So if you're interested in participating, go to our website at truckeepolice.com, and there's some information there as well as an application. We also want to hone our skills in major incident review and communication with the community. We want to be able to communicate with our community in the event of a wildfire. How is that information received? Can we be more efficient with that? So they really serve as a sounding board for me and our staff to better serve our community. So that's our goal. And then continued conversations about persons experiencing homelessness and crisis intervention. Regarding crisis intervention, our officers are all CIT trained with this crisis intervention techniques training. So that's like the gold standard of police, POST, which is POST, Police Officer Standard and Training in California. We have taken that one step further and provided this training to all staff in the police department. So our front record staff, our front office staff, animal control, animal shelter staff. So in about 2 weeks, I'm happy to say that every member of the police department will be CIT trained. We'll go to the next slide, please. So this is part of the scenario-based training and members of the current CAC. Then it was Mayor Henderson who's there in the top center there. So we did have some good times, and it looks like that's a very popular thing, and people want to do that more. So we're using simunitions, we're putting them in ballistic vests, and we're creating as real as possible call for service, so they can not only feel it, but they can taste it and they can smell it, of what it's like to be a police officer. Next slide. So the challenges: recruitment and retention. Obviously, police departments across the nation have struggled to recruit new and lateral officers for a variety of reasons. No longer are there lines outside the door of police officer applicants. It's few and far between. And currently we have 6 vacant police officer positions at the Truckee Police Department. 2 of those positions are 2 additions that this year's budget through council approved to increase our numbers by 2. So that leaves us 6. And I'm happy to say that we have a new police officer that's starting next week, and we have 4 additional police officers that are currently in the hiring process right now. So, I'm excited about that because I think they're the right fit. Excuse me. It's important to note that we will not lower the bar when we are recruiting police officers. We're not just going to get a warm body in a Truckee police uniform. We want the right fit for our community, but we also want an officer with the emotional intelligence to police our community by modeling the community-oriented policing strategies. We expect our officers, and I want to make that extremely clear to each applicant of what our expectation is. As you can see, the town and the Truckee Police Officers Association agreed to a great contract, making us very competitive in our region. Who's heard of our LPR pilot program? Okay, so LPR is automated license plate readers. So they're small cameras about the size of my hand that will be positioned at fixed locations around town. It's important to note that this type of technology does not capture personal identifying information of any of the occupants or the driver of the vehicle. It does not use facial recognition, and it cannot be used for immigration enforcement. So why do we need LPRs in our community? And I think that there's two reasons. First is what it's designed for. Criminal investigation, criminal deterrence. It's an incredible tool to not only solve crimes, but prevent criminal behavior. It helps locate missing persons. It alerts officers when a stolen vehicle enters our town. It alerts officers of Amber Alert vehicles, Silver Alert vehicles. Those are different types of, so everybody knows what an Amber Alert is. Silver Alert would be a situation where there might be an individual that has some sort of cognitive decline, gets behind the wheel and drives away, and family members don't know where they're at. So we can put that information into this type of technology, and it'll alert us right away once that car passes by one of our cameras. 2 minutes, okay. So a lot of benefits there of what that is designed to do. We wanted to take this a step further in the emergency management realm. So we all know that populations fluctuate here, right? And so that's going to change quite a bit for our evacuation modeling in the event of a wildfire. So in the event of a wildfire or other community threat, strategically placed ALPRs will provide real-time data of the amount of vehicles within a specific neighborhood or a subdivision. Law enforcement is responsible for planning and coordinating evacuations. So this real-time data is critical for emergency management planning, as we would couple this data with our evacuation modeling software, which is called LADRIS, to know how long it would take to evacuate a particular neighborhood. So Tahoe Donner, for an example, that population fluctuates depending on the time of year or the weekend. So these cameras will be able to pull up the data and say, there's 5,000 cars in Tahoe Donner right now. And so in conjunction with the LADRIS evacuation modeling software, we're able to get a good idea based on roadway width and carrying capacity of how long it's going to take to evacuate that subdivision. So that's key information for us. Slide. Yeah, I just want to take any questions. I wanted to thank the invite to speak today. I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to represent the Truckee Police Department in this capacity. So thank you. Yes, sir.
Of the professional staff that you supervise, how many of those people live in Truckee versus?
So if we're just talking records inside the police department, probably say a quarter of them live in town. Probably more of 3/4 at the Humane Society or at the shelter. Yes.
I was posed with a question the other day. If we have a parade in town or something like that, people need to get a permit to manage traffic. They need to pay the police department to do that. Is there any sort of trigger that might be usable or for the ski resorts when they're just there's so much traffic that they're required to pull a permit, required to pay the police department to manage traffic?
Yeah, that's a great question. We're having those conversations of the local impact that we're feeling, because it absolutely paralyzes us. Whether or not a special events permit would apply in that scenario, I don't know. But that's interesting. Interesting take on it. Yes, sir.
How much engagement are you getting with the ski areas? Because, we can't even handle a good snow day.
Right. Yeah, so Supervisor Bullock has a CCC meeting that meets once a month. And it has, 40 or 50 participants that are on that call. And it's everybody from the ski resorts to CHP, Caltrans, you name it, public entity is involved in that call. And we do strategize and talk about busy weekends and how we can mitigate some of this traffic. Is it the egress of traffic that we're seeing that's a problem? Yes. That's passing through our community, and is it the chain control and what's happening out on the summit when people are trying to get westbound? Is that a problem? Yes. And so there's a lot of different ideas and strategies that we're throwing around to try to eliminate the backup and to keep traffic moving at some level. Let's face it, our roads were built in the 70s, right? And they were never designed to handle this type of load. So we're doing the best that we can.
And how motivated is the user
It's a good question. You should ask them. Yeah. We're at the table talking, so hopefully that works. Yes, ma'am.
Placer County Sheriff, how do you interact with them in the traffic? Because Placer County is approving stuff that impacts.
Sure. So that's a different dynamic over there. So the California Highway Patrol is responsible for traffic-related duties in Placer, so unincorporated areas of the county. CHP is responsible. So CHP, from my understanding, Palisades does hire some CHP officers to handle traffic entering into the valley. And then the local CHP office, as well as the Truckee Police Department, participate with the ingress through the Mouse Hole, the Deerfield intersection, and then the West River Street intersection.
How does Placer County Sheriff deal with everything on the south side of Donner Lake, part of Sierra Meadows, North Star? That's all part of Placer County.
Yes.
Do they do the sheriffing there?
They do. Yeah. So that would be their jurisdiction. They would be the primary law enforcement agency to handle those types of calls that originate in those areas.
How many sheriffs are there with Placer County, just for fun?
In the North Tahoe area, I'm
North Tahoe and South Truckee are all Placer County.
yeah. So I would guess, but I'm thinking around 25. Yes, sir.
Will the town be making the LDR data available to anyone else in the town, anyone private?
So there's two methods of how we would collect that data, and each of those methods, excuse me, require a law enforcement need, right? A need to know, right to know. So we'd have to have an active investigation. So how it works is cars drive by these cameras. Cameras take the pictures of the license plate. That data goes up into a cloud. And in order for us to access that cloud information, we assign each individual officer unique login credentials, and they have to put in a reason why they're accessing that information. And so the only information that they would be getting would be like a vehicle description or a license plate. And then what we do with that information is like step one of the investigative process. So we'd have to take that information and investigate further. In the scenario where it's evacuation planning and we're just looking at volumes of cars, we can get that data and we wouldn't need a need because there's no identifying information. It doesn't say that it's a gray Toyota. It doesn't say a license plate. It's just a car counting mechanism. And it benefits us in that, like the old air tubes that you'd run over and it would be like a car counter. Well, if the same car made the trip 5 times into town, it's going to record 5 cars. Well, this type of technology, it's only going to record that 1 car. And so that gives us real accurate data to make our decisions moving forward. Yes, sir.
Could you just briefly describe the volunteer police help you have and what you envision for the future, whether
Yeah.
to expand it or contract?
Yeah, absolutely. So about 8 years ago, we had a very robust volunteer program. We had about 18 to 19 volunteers who were very active. Since then, they've decided to retire 3 or 4, careers down the road, and we're looking for our next generation of volunteers. So currently we have 4, and they are active, but it's only 4. So anybody who's interested, please visit our website. We're interested in building those numbers up. They're a tremendous asset to not only the police department but our community. So public service, come on out, and we'll get you trained up.
You get to carry a gun?
No.
All right. If anybody has any other questions, I think.
Yeah. After I'll be around afterwards. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Chief Renfro. All right, stump speeches. Do we have anybody out there? Yes, go ahead.
On your table, save the date. It's not a wedding. It's not an engagement. It's the Brew Fest. August 5th. On the back, it says what you can do or what you cannot do. There you have it. August 5th. Mark it
Erica.
Hi all. The town of Truckee just launched a communication survey, so we want to hear from you to understand your kids, grandkids, anyone who's a Truckee resident, vote for free.
Any other stump speech? Yes. Pickleball, maybe. I don't know. I'm guessing.
Couple of things. First of all, our plans for the project has come out. It's right by the door here. Take a look. I'm going to stand there and answer any questions that you have. And hopefully, as Samantha said, we're going to go to permitting process this week in town. And hopefully that'll be done. We're hoping we start in May this year if the snow melts. The other thing is that we're starting to sell pavers to raise money to build this course in town. They are going to be big enough. If you want to buy, if you're a business, you want to buy one, we can put your logo on the paver. And they're going to be different locations around the courts. They have $350, $500, and $1,000 pavers. And one other thing happened that we had to add a stadium court to our project because the Professional Pickleball Association, they want to come to Truckee and they want to have a tournament stop here. So that's why we had to add a stadium court. So the price of the project went up. So we're hoping that you participate in our paver program and buy a paver. And the bigger pavers go by the stadium court. So please help us out to build this court. We did have a really nice donation this past month from Tahoe Forest Hospital and also another one from Ace Hardware Store in town. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you. If you have any questions, I'll be here at the door. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? If not, we'll go into, yes. And where are those held?
We have them virtually online.
Okay.
You can contact me at Cedric, Watership Council. And we're also open if you want to host one for yourself. We're happy to come and give presentations with your friends and family.
Thank you. Okay, we will go on to the raffle. So get your, what?
Door prize, not a raffle.
Oh, okay. Yes, all right. Things have changed here. Looks like a raffle, sounds like a raffle, but it's a door prize. Door prize. Legal reasons, probably. All right. First thing up is Truckee Police Department Traveler Cup and goodies and a return ticket to Good Morning Truckee. That will go to 4584660. There you go. All right, Ernie. Up next, we have a Dixon Realty Bakery Goods box.
Dixon Realty donates nothing.
What?
Fika med Anna
So,
donation.
I'm just reading, you know, don't kill the messenger.
There we go.
Okay, here we go.
That's who's donating.
Fika. Fika is donating it, and thank you. Yes. Well, I won't, but somebody will. Maybe I'll win. I don't get a ticket. It's, you know. All right. 4584666. All right, Erica. Enjoy. Okay. Next up is a Stars Shine Brighter in Truckee, California license plate frame. And that is going to 4584667. I should have mixed these up. Oh, there we go. All right. And finally, a Grizzly Menswear $25 gift card going to 4584650. All right. Going once, twice, three times. Next up is 4584679. Grizzly Wear men's card. Yes, all right, Chief Renfro. Pays to present. Pays to present. There we go. All right, well, thank you to Sven Leff, Richard Palante, Rob Entire, and Chief Renfro for presenting this morning. Pleased to see all of you. So good morning, Truckee, and hopefully we'll see you next month. Enjoy. Yep.